everybody, so I'm on my way to the range right now as we speak. I have brought 400 rounds with me. I brought the APX Centurion and the Smith & Wesson M&P 2.0 Compact. I think it's going to be a good comparability to the two guns based on the fact that they're roughly the same size. The grip shape feels the same in my hand, albeit the APX you can sit a little bit lower under that slide or a little bit further in. So I think it's going to be interesting today's shooting. Hopefully I do okay. We'll find out. Stay tuned and let's see what happens.
So what I'm going to show you in these clips that I'm going to have on this video, this is real world stuff. So, you know, I could easily edit all my footage and show you bullseye after bullseye, but that's just not realistic. So you can see that when I'm shooting this gun to begin with, not very good. And a lot of it, in my opinion, again, had to do with two things, grip placement and also the trigger. I was having a tough time really just getting a feel for the trigger and where to put my support hand. So one of the things that I did notice is as I continued to shoot the gun, I was able to kind of shrink the groups up a little bit more. Again, this is very wild from what I'm used to. Some of the, you know, the groupings are getting tighter, but they're high, they're to the left or to the right. A lot of that, again, very telling in regards to my trigger pull. A lot of the times I was jerking the trigger and just not really getting a good feel for it. In the next few rounds that you see here, you're starting to see things now start to kind of come together a little bit better. Again, still not perfect, still not where I would like to be from shooting a handgun. But again, it's a new gun, so you have to really take that in consideration. So again, as I pull the target closer, you see there's a lot of wild shots going on. Look like shrapnel almost. So this is going to be, again, right after all the other ones that you've just seen. So these are all in chronological order, just so you can see how the progression goes. Again, I'm not ashamed of how I shoot. I feel like I shoot pretty well. But at the same time, if I was going to tell you that I shoot bullseyes all the time, I'd be lying to you. And again, this is where I'm at right now. This is probably, gosh, maybe 30 to maybe getting close to 40 rounds into the day. So again, as the groupings get a little bit tighter, you can see that I'm starting now to actually punch holes in the middle of that target, which is what I was looking for. And in the grand scheme of things, if this was a human body, then obviously all the shots are on target. There's maybe one or two flyers that are a little bit wide, but other than that, still not that bad looking. So when I was done with this group, you can see the photograph that I took here. That's basically what it looked like in the first half of shooting. So again, I think overall it was a pretty solid day at this point, but it did take some time to really, like I said, learn that trigger and get a good feel for how I was going to be controlling that gun. This was towards the end of the day. Again, the groupings are starting to shrink even more. Again, not perfect. Again, I don't want to sit here and pretend that I'm a marksman because, as you can see, the proof is in the pudding, so to speak. And what you're going to see as I draw this target back, that the groupings got more consistent. They were getting much tighter. There's less and less of the red on this target. But again, if this was a human silhouette of their chest cavity and their abdominal area, in my opinion, all the shots would be where they need to be. So overall, what did I think of my day shooting this handgun? Guys, I'll be honest with you. If you haven't looked at a Beretta APX Centurion, you might actually want to take a good, hard, long look at it because I think it's going to be worth the money. I think it's a fantastic gun, and it's a really good addition for anybody who really wants to start, you know, getting a compact polymer gun. And again, as you see the target, a lot of that red has been chewed out. Again, still not perfect, but everything is fairly good center mass. And this is what was left of the target after about another 25 rounds. So let's go to the table and let's take a look at this gun a little bit closer. All right, guys, welcome back. And this is the follow-up review of the Beretta APX Centurion. So this gun is, I've got to say, a very surprising handgun in a lot of different ways. And you see the M&P 2.0 Compact next to it. I took this with it. I didn't get anything on film with this gun. I just wanted to kind of shoot it side by side to see what I thought about that. And I'll give you some impressions because this is one of my favorite compact striker-fired handguns, just a really good shooter. But we're going to talk about this in a minute, how it compared to the APX. Now, in regards to the APX, this one, I'm going to start off with the things that I found about the gun that I wasn't necessarily too keen on. And it isn't much. There really aren't too many big things. One of them is kind of a trivial thing. The other two are kind of things that really aren't a negative about the gun per se. It's really more about me as the shooter. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is hand placement. One of the things that I had a little difficulty with was where was I going to put my support hand? And obviously people say, well, just put it there. But I also like having a position for my thumb. Now you have this little area right here in the front by the muzzle, where, you know, you could use that as kind of like a landmark. But what I felt was with my thumb there, I just felt like I was too spread out on the gun, that I wasn't maintaining a really good grip on it. I didn't feel comfortable with the security of the grip, so to speak. So what I wound up doing was actually moved my thumb slightly back, and I started riding a little bit on the takedown lever. Now, that's not the ideal place for me, so to speak, but I felt that once I made that adjustment, I was really able to crush this grip. Now, that could be the fact that I was using the larger back strap in the back, but I don't really think so. I just think that's where this is. If this was maybe just a little bit further back, maybe even putting the takedown lever a little further back, just so you can get a little bit more of a secure fit. Again, these are just nitpicking items. It wasn't necessarily anything that, you know, really did anything to the function of the gun. It's just more or less what I found when I was shooting it. Now, the other thing that I noticed on the handgun were the sights. Now, the sights are decent. They're steel 3-dot sights, but what I did not like was that there was a lot of play in between the front notch or the front post and then the back sights. So it took a little bit of getting used to in regards to lining it up correctly for the target. So again, minor stuff, nothing that I would say would affect anything in regards to the gun, because you can always upgrade the sights if you want to at a later time. So for me, the biggest thing, which I'll get to in a second, but the first thing I actually want to talk about are these magazines. So as many of you know, I have a 10-round magazine limit in New York State. These magazine springs inside were so friggin' ridiculous. I couldn't even load 10 rounds into this gun. I didn't have any maglula or anything like that, or whatever they're called. But at the same time, I did use my fingers. And let me tell you, it was a struggle. So this magazine, both of them, extremely difficult to fit 10 rounds in them. Again, these magazines aren't usually 10 rounders. So that's not, again, any negative about the gun. It's just what I found with what I was experiencing after shooting this. So the biggest thing that I'll talk about is going to be the trigger. Now, the trigger, the shape of the shoe, no problem. I didn't feel any issues with the little trigger safety. Even though it doesn't recess all the way back into the shoe, I didn't feel it. It didn't bother my finger at all shooting it. I put 400 rounds through this gun, no problems with it. I didn't get any blisters, any marks or anything like that on my finger, which is fine. But the one thing that I kept doing consistently with this gun, and again, it's not a knock against the gun. It's not even really a knock against the trigger. It's more of me, the shooter. But the one thing that I kept doing was anticipating the break on this trigger. So, you know, the trigger's a good trigger. I mean, it's a solid trigger. It's a bit heavier than I want at about a little over 6 pounds. What I'm going to probably do is get a reduced power striker spring in here, which I think lowers this by a pound. And you don't have any issues with light primer strikes, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to probably do that. I think it's like an $18 part, just because I want to take some poundage off this trigger. Not too much, but just a little bit more, because when I kept going to reset, what I felt was I just wasn't able to stage the trigger out the way I wanted to. And because of that, a lot of my shots in the initial part of this were actually going all over the place. And then once I took my time, again, to me, it's always about learning the gun that you have in front of you. Not every gun's going to feel the same. Not every gun's going to shoot the same. So you really have to take your time and learn the gun. So in this case, the trigger, once I got down where that trigger was going to break, just where, I needed to get that reset, I have to be honest with you guys, the gun just shot really well. And I have to say, other than the minor things that I just mentioned, this would be a no-brainer to get. In my opinion, the Beretta APX Centurion is kind of the perfect APX. It's got even though it's not a 4-inch barrel, you still have a compact grip. You can get all 3 fingers on there with very little showing at the bottom. And honestly, guys, when I compared it to the Smith & Wesson M&P 2.0, and I absolutely love this gun shoots very flat for me. The trigger, obviously, even though it's a custom trigger, the trigger on this is just ridiculously good. But when I shot them side by side, one of the things that absolutely stood out the most, even though this had the better trigger feel, the recoil impulse. The Smith & Wesson M&P 2.0, for those of you who have one, it's a very flat shooting handgun. This Beretta APX, I have to say, shoots even flatter. There was absolutely very little muzzle rise in this, even though it's a 9mm, I know that. But ultimately, this gun shot extremely fast and extremely flat. As a matter of fact, you wanted to keep shooting it faster and faster as you kept going. And that's why I said I had to take my time, really learn the trigger, really learn the gun. But this gun shoots really flat. And again, it could be the ergonomics of the gun, but I think it's also attributed to the fact that you can sit so low and so far underneath that slide that it soaks up a lot of that recoil that's coming back at you. So that's a great thing about this handgun. Now, what are the things that are good about this? Again, no issues, 400 rounds through it, no problems, nothing. The stippling on this, or I should say the texturing on this gun, absolutely fantastic. I think this is probably some of the best texturing of any handgun that's out in the market right now. Some people might say it's a P10. Some might say it's actually this one here. To be honest with you, I do like the Smith & Wesson M&P 2.0. If you guys have not seen Dave Gass's video, you might want to check that out. He's talking about carrying his 2.0 shield and how this starts to get eaten up a little bit. And he's right. Like, mine has smoothed out quite a bit from constant carry. And I have to say that this on the Beretta APX feels even better. It just bites right into your hand. That low and foreign grip that you get on this gun, it doesn't go anywhere. The gun does not move. You don't have to worry about readjusting your grip every single time you pull that trigger. But I'll tell you, once you get that support hand and you bite in and you just grab that gun, this gun goes absolutely nowhere. So while it took me, I want to say probably around, and I don't really care what anybody thinks, I will tell you right now, this took me a good probably 30 to 40 rounds to really get comfortable with the trigger, how the gun felt in my hand, how I was shooting it. After that, the groupings got a lot tighter, a lot more consistent, and this gun is absolutely a blast to shoot. You know, if you guys are out there looking for a compact polymer striker-fired handgun and you haven't considered a Beretta APX, I'm going to tell you right now, you're doing yourself a very big disservice. At first, you know, I was a little skeptical of the APX. The full size was a very good handgun, but at the end of the day, it didn't really do much for me in regards to the way it necessarily felt or the way it shot. But the Centurion, totally different ball game. It actually is what I would be looking for in a compact handgun. You know, you have about a 3.7-inch barrel, so it's not a full 4-inch. I mean, you can even see the difference with the 2.0, that the 2.0 is slightly longer, obviously. But just comparing the two, the way these both feel in my hands, they're extremely ergonomic and super comfortable. But again, I have to say, this APX goes right into your hand. It is extremely comfortable to shoot. I absolutely love the footprint of this gun. It's in my opinion, this is the Goldilocks APX. It is the right size for anything you're going to use it for, whether it's range time, self-defense, concealed carry. I think it makes a very, very, very good fit in anybody's concealed carry regiment. Now, some of the other things that I noticed about the gun while I was shooting it, again, besides it being flat, I had no issues with anything, you know, any failure to feed, any double feeds, nothing. It just shot really, really well. All the controls work very well. The magazine ejection is fantastic. You know, using the ambi controls actually were not a problem. I mean, everything went the way it was supposed to with this handgun. The trigger, again, I think is a very good trigger for an out-of-the-box trigger. I am going to be trying to see if I can reduce the pull just a little bit, and I will be taking this gun out because I want to learn. I really, really want to master this trigger even more because I think the gun is definitely worth it. And like I said, you know, here's your take-up, so it's a very short take-up, and then it breaks pretty far back. So I think what my problem was with the gun was the reset I was expecting to come out a little bit further, a little bit more positive, a little bit more of a push, but it didn't. It was actually a very short reset. So sometimes if I was shooting flat or fast, what I noticed was that I wasn't allowing that trigger to come fully out to reset properly. So again, is that a fault of the gun? Absolutely not. That is 100% on me. And again, as the day progressed, it got even better. So again, guys, I would love to hear what you have to say about the Beretta APX line in general. If you have experience with this, what are your thoughts? Do you think people who have not experienced the Beretta APX should at least go out and try it and see what they think? And, you know, if you have a Beretta, what size do you have and why would you prefer that size? I mean, some people like the compact, some people like the full size, and then obviously the Centurion. To me, I think this one is the best of all three of them. So again, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. So I hope you have a great night. Stay safe, and as always, everyone, freedom is never free.